Stand clear.
100% Wild podcast.
So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DruryOutdoors 100% Wild podcast. This is episode number 345. We're powered by DeerCast. I continue to be Tim Chelsvik.
I'm Matt Drury. We have a special guest, a giant deer killer, old man winner, Terry Drury. How the hell you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? It's always such a delight to see you two smiling faces.
Wait, is that
from years, 42
genuine?
of years of experience? He's BSing us.
Oh, man. Well, we're good. We're not as good as you, though. You're on today to talk about another high water mark for your whitetail hunting career that happened here recently. I think most people that listen to the show probably know what we're talking about. They've seen, if they've been on DeerCast, they've seen it. Terry, tell us about this, the biggest deer of your life.
It was good. I mean, it was really, really, really good. It was a deer that we obviously knew. He was a homeboy, and we've spent countless hours, Forrest and I, talking about him and strategizing and planning and all the things that go into harvesting a big deer. You just, you're consumed with it. It was not too indifferent from the way we were with Junkie last year, the big deer that Forrest harvested over in Illinois. We spent countless hours talking about that deer. I mean, for 3 years. This one, at age 3.5, we knew him, or first blush, if you will, the first encounter that we had with him. It was after dark. We didn't get any footage of him, but that was in November of 21. And we had the first encounter with him, and we knew he had a lot of potential. He's a 6x7, beautiful deer. And at that time we thought, man, oh man, if this deer makes it to 5.5, 6.5, he's going to be an absolute toad. And that spring, we had a couple other encounters with him throughout deer season, had a lot of pictures, on Reconyx cameras back then. And we just were taking it all in, thinking, we're going to obviously let him walk, give him the green light and see what he does at 4.5. Well, that spring, it was in March, Forrest, obviously he always walks trying to pick up all the sheds that he can find. He found his left side, which I have here.
Oh,
and this was at age 3.5, which you see, when you see a deer like that, you go, man, oh man. But he shed really, really, really hard.
Oh boy.
All right. See that tab that went down into the pedicle, and part of that is broken off. But the moment that Forrest found that, he contacted me and he goes, this deer shed really hard. And I was like, oh boy, that's not good. We both knew at that time that there was a chance that he was going to have a messed up side. And Forrest called it then. I did too. We were like, doggone it, that's not good.
Terry,
because
is that down into part of the skull there?
Yeah. And it was longer than this, Tim. Part of it's broken off, but it went down into that pedicle area pretty deep. And we had concerns. And as luck would have it, he never found the other side right then. Mm-hmm. But when we then first started getting his 4.5-year-old pictures, on camera, on trail cameras, sure enough, he had one bad side. That left side was not developing like the right. So the right looked fantastic, but the left did not. And our concerns rang true. With that being said, on that right side, that drop started to develop. So there was a little intrigue there and a few other stickers and flyers. And we were like, man, oh man, if he could come out of it at age 5, and happen to grow that left side back the way he had it at 3, he could really be something. So, we went throughout that entire season at 4.5, had a bunch of encounters and a bunch of pictures. As a matter of fact, when Matt and Scott were in, we had a point blank encounter with Scott. And, I hated to continue asking Scott not to shoot the deer, but he was a 4.5-year-old and Scott obliged, obviously, out of respect and courtesy for the deer and for what we're trying to do as far as management is concerned.
I love you, Scott.
But he willingly passed the deer, and it was a beautiful encounter. I mean, it was gorgeous. And we let him walk. So that whole season went through at age 4.5, and then Forrest looked for his sheds, I mean, really, really hard, because with that drop and with that funky side, he was looking extremely hard. Didn't find either side at age 4.5, but he did find his other side at 3.5. So we're like, well, doggone. And it was chewed up a little bit, but he had a split here on his G2, and he had some stuff at the bases that were starting, So we were pretty enthused at the 3.5 side, which was now the 4.5. And this is where that drop came out. He had a little bit of a rub here. He had a rub here on his 2. All of these little bitty things that were showing up, all of a sudden, we thought, man, oh man, what will he be like at age 5.5? And as luck would have it, we start getting the pictures at age 5.5. We go through the summer months, obviously, and man, oh man, he's blown. I mean, absolutely blue in velvet, and we just couldn't get enough photos of him, and we couldn't talk about him enough. And immediately, he was a homeboy. So a lot of these things that we're talking about, these events, finding the sheds and all that, were really, really close to where we ended up killing him. So it was, I guess, poetic. From that standpoint, the fact that all of this information was coming together, all of the pictures, all of the sheds, it just his travel pattern, his travel route, bed to feed to bed, where he went, and his home core range was all pretty tight. It wasn't too terribly large.
Okay.
And one thing I did notice at 4.5, he was a really small body deer. What I felt was small. He was smaller than average, I thought. Mm-hmm. But at age 5.5, he came back. So I don't know if something was wrong with him or why that shed dropped like that. But at 5.5, he blew back up and blew into just an absolute gem.
It's rare too, because a lot of times it's kind of a perfect scenario there where he's staying around this one spot, because a lot of times, we're passing deer, but they walk and then you're worrying about the firearm season. A lot of neighbors and gun hunters, just like everybody deals with. And so this is one of those deals where you also want to try to get on the deer before he starts really opening up his home range, and that circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you think about it, it's like, man, what would he have done at 6.5? But I don't sometimes I wonder, this might've been his best year at 5.5. Like, I can't imagine him getting much bigger. I know it can happen, but it's like the perfect scenario of, he blew up in a year where not a lot of deer did, like drought conditions, and it really screwed with antler development for a lot of deer. Like I don't really recall any deer I have from last year to this year getting much bigger. I know Mark said the same thing. So going into it, you're thinking smaller body, and you and Forrest kept saying, every time I'd ask, you're like, maybe a 180-ish, and I'm thinking like, geez, I know, I don't know what they look like, but it seems like he's bigger than 180. He's a bigger deer than that, isn't he?
Well, we were being on the conservative side, and I always am, but I was guessing him on the low side because of his body size, truly. Because to me, he wasn't much bigger than some of the younger deer. But with that being said, the mass on this thing just absolutely carried him. He had 48 and some inches of mass. I mean, his smallest mass measurement was 5 3/8, I think. And his fourth mass measurement on both sides was 6 4 or something. It was 6 4/8. It was just tremendous, the amount of mass he had. And to your point, Matt, I was really concerned about him getting busted up more than anything, because it's that time of the year where they start sparring. He's got all these little flyers and stickers and stuff coming off. He had split G1s, and he had that drop. And I thought, man, oh man, I really hunted him hard early, trying to do our best to get on him and kill him, because I was really worried about him losing a lot of that stuff. And fortunately, we were able to get to him early. But when we lose, back to your point about losing certain deer, we lose them every year. There's certain deer that that they're going to get whacked, and they do. And that's great. Everybody deserves a chance at a big deer, and we appreciate some of the neighbors that are managing much like we are. It's always nice if everybody's on the same page. So it's good from that respect. And everybody, if they harvest a big deer, great for them. But this one was one that we weren't going to let him out of our sights until we got him on the ground. And when I told Forrest this every night, I said, we're either going to spook him or we're going to kill him, one or the other. And I've never, ever, ever pounded a spot like we did this one. we pounded that blind and pounded that blind and pounded that blind and went back and went back and went back. But we continued getting his picture there, and we changed our strategy up just a little bit as far as access, getting in and out. We were careful. You know, hell, we were having these encounters at 2 minutes after legal, 3 minutes after legal. We had 5 or 6 encounters with him, and we never boogered him. Not one time did we spook the deer. So we sat in that dark box for an hour and a half on several occasions, waiting until he moved on, because he was at this little water hole. And that's kind of back to basics, if you will. You know, that's the stuff you hunt when you're a novice and you're 16 years old with a bow. You're going to go sit over a pond and kill a deer. Well, by golly, it's so dry up here. That drought just carried on through the fall, and I think we're 7.5 or 8 inches behind our 10-year average year to date. We're still way behind. Now they're calling for rain now, but I was going to sit that water hole until he either quit coming there or we killed him, one or the other. And that's exactly what happened. We continued getting his pictures there, so we just kept going back, and we did change access going in and out. We were real careful and all the things that you do to try and kill a big deer.
So that's where I want to focus in on a little bit and that part of the story. So right out of the gate in September, I want to kind of go through some of these encounters and some of the things that the links that you went through. But first and foremost, the beginning of the season in middle of September or so, I think you were gone. You were maybe you and Mom had gone somewhere, and Forrest went out on a scouting mission, right? MRI mission. Start with that hunt, because it's incredible.
Yeah, that was, I'm looking here. Forrest made some notes. When was that, Forrest? On
September.
That was September the 17th.
Yeah.
All right. We were getting his picture a lot. So we were on a cruise up in the Northeast, and then I'll be doggone if we didn't get COVID. So if you want to get COVID, why just go sit in an airport and get on a cruise ship, and you're almost guaranteed you'll get it. So that set us back from me coming back up here. You know, we had this deer, and I was chomping at the bits to get here, but I had to wait until I was clear to where I could be out and about. So in our feeble mind, we were like, okay, we think we know where he's bedding. Why don't you hang an observation stand and just kind of keep an eye on that bean field and see where he pops out? Well, Forrest did just that. He went in, he hung an observation stand, and he sees where Mick Dundee comes out. Lo and behold, he pops out, and I think it was like early in the evening, maybe 6 o'clock or something. It was plenty of daylight. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the deer turns and starts to walk straight at him. And he's 300 yards from this deer, 350 yards. And he's watching him, and all of a sudden he kept coming. He gets within 40 yards of Forrest and literally walks right by him over to a standing cornfield. And we're like, doggone, then we get the bright idea that we're going to kill him on this corn. So unfortunately, we had the corn and we had cameras there and all that. We never got a daylight photo of him at the corn ever.
And the footage of that encounter was awesome, by the way. Forrest has always killed it.
Yeah, Forrest did a great job filming it. It's absolutely glorious. Him coming through, big old rack, blah, blah, blah. And he's telling me about this, and I was like, oh, we'll kill him on that corn, blah, blah, blah. Well, that didn't happen. But he continued bedding where he was bedding. So the pictures kept coming in, and he was at that water hole with regularity. So we go, okay, we're going to have to sit that box. So we go in there, we sit the box on a rainy event one evening, just a little bit of misty rain. I don't know, we got a tenth or two. It wasn't enough to mount anything. And I just so happened to pull a curtain back, and I go, oh, there's a big deer. And I look, it's him standing there. It was dark and kind of dingy, and I didn't see the drop right away. So we look again and we go, oh shit, it's him. And he's 37, 38 yards. And he's kind of staring up at the box. To make a long story short, we never open a window. We kind of get ready, but he doesn't give us an opportunity for a shot. He walks off. That was first encounter. And then right multiple encounters after that, where he was at the same damn place, but it was 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, behind us, but it was 2 or 3 minutes after legal shooting hours. So a couple of them we couldn't film him because it was too dark for the camera, and you couldn't kill him. Obviously, it was past legal shooting hours. So we just kept going back. We thought, man, oh man, we're just going to have to continue going back to this box because he's frequenting there and he's consistent. Well, we have another encounter with him where he's out in the beans. He comes from the north, and we had a north wind that night, and he's out at 85 or 90 yards in the bean field. And, at that point, he has 2 other bucks with him. And we're like, okay, if he takes his time, he could get within bow range here. Let's just, keep our cool. We're not going to do anything irrational, blah, blah, blah. We didn't have any windows open. Well, you know how, and it was windy that day, but you know how deer sometimes will bolt. They'll just, jump like that. Well, the 2 bucks that were with him bolted just a little bit and never moved. They didn't budge. They stood in the same spot, but he left and shot out of there like a rocket. And I was like, God dang it. There was an opportunity. It was broad daylight. He came out early. I knew he was going to work up into our position. Well, it didn't happen that day either. So I was like, son of a buck. It's, and now all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, these shots are going to be, he's at 85 or 90 yards. I was hoping to get him to 50. And you're shooting 45.
You're shooting the mission crossbow on these sits, right?
Well, he wasn't.
Well, I wasn't.
Oh,
no, I was shooting my Matthews, but because of my shoulder, I've been nursing a shoulder for 2 years, and I've got the draw weight down where I don't feel comfortable. And it's not fair to the animal to take a lengthy shot. 20 or 25 yards is about all I'm good for. And it's low poundage. So I've still got penetration. I still get zipped through, and all that pass through. So I feel good out to that distance. But if I'm going to be shooting him at 40 or 50, I'm going to have to go to another means here. So I take the mission with me after that. After that event at 85 or 90, where he jolts out of the field, then I go, okay, I'm going to have to change my strategy just a little bit too. So with that being said, we go back time and time again. We had 2 or 3 more encounters with him that were just after dark, after legal. And we didn't booger him at any one of those. We kept it closed up. It was so hot in that blind on 1 or 2 of the evenings that Forrest took 2 coolers. We had big blocks of ice in the coolers. We had fans running, and we literally were melting just like the ice inside that blind. And Matt, you know how it is inside those things when it's hot like that.
Yeah.
Because the season was warm. It obviously was the reason that he continued going to the water hole, but it was also the reason that we were melting like hot butter. So we did that on several nights. We kept going back, and he would just come out just after legal. So we just kept pounding it, and we had to make the decision. Either we were going to booger him or we were going to kill him. So we just kept going back. And then as luck would have it, he's with these other few small deer at the pond one evening, pretty doggone early. I think Forrest glances back there. There's 3 or 4 small deer there at the water hole. And then he goes, oh my God, there he is. So he's, jacking around with these other deer. I say he's playing grab ass with them. And he's, kind of dogging a little bit. Then he goes through the thickest, nastiest, gnarliest stuff behind that box. He goes and he starts rubbing on this little bitty 2-inch tree. And it just so happened that day when we sat down, that evening when we sat down there, Forrest goes, oh, look, there's a fresh rub right there. And I looked at it too, and I was like, damn, he ripped it. Whoever did that, whatever deer did that, it was shining. It was beautiful. And I'll be darned if he didn't walk straight to that little signpost. It was only about 2.5, 3 inches diameter, and he rubs it. And he rubs it, and he licks it, and he smells it, and he rubs it, and he licks it. And we're ready. I mean, we don't have a window open, but we are ready, and the anticipation is very, very high. The anxiety is even higher. So he puts on the show of all shows. For 6.5 minutes, he's rubbing on this little bitty tree, and he's taking his dear old time. Time means nothing to those deer, just like a turkey. Time means nothing to them. So he rubs on that thing, and he rubs on it, and finally, if he goes north, he's going to walk out into the beans, and he should be 30 yards or something like that. If he turns and goes south, back towards the pond where all these deer were still running around in circles like a racehorse, then he's going to walk right through our shooting lane. And I mean, we got a highway. It's beautiful. It's wide open. Forrest and Peyton trimmed it this summer, and he's going to be right in there. So he does just that. He turns finally, and he starts walking on this little faint trail. It's in the brush. But man, and at that point, when I knew he committed, then man, we threw the window down real quickly, stuck the mission out the window. And from the time we opened it, I think till we shot him was 11 seconds. And we kind of planned that. We practiced it. We planned it. I didn't want anything to go wrong. Unfortunately, the crossbow kind of got hung up in my shoulder, so it took me a little bit longer because I was futzing around with it until I got it out the window. But the moment that crosshair was on him, boom, we pulled the trigger, and he ran 50, 55 yards, and he was dead within 5 seconds.
It was a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
Like when you think about shot placement, like just to watch that bolt fly out there and hit right behind that shoulder. Pretty.
And as luck would have it, I obviously could have shot him with my vertical, but I didn't think he'd give me a broad or quartering at 21 yards. I never dreamt that. In my back of my mind, I kept thinking I'm going to end up having to shoot him at 40, 45, 50 yards. And this mission, Forrest has got it absolutely lighting matches at 50 yards. I mean, it is dialed in. So with mechanical head. So I was convinced it was going to be a long shot, and I'll be damned if he didn't end up at 21 yards there. So I could have shot him with a vertical, but it worked out pretty good.
I want to roll back a little bit. One of the stories through this chase that I was kind of amazed about was you guys had an encounter, I guess, leading into that evening's hunt. I don't remember which encounter it was, but you and Forrest had placed two different buggies on two different ends of the farm in case Nick Dundee went one way and you had to exit another way. And you ended up having to do that, exit the other way. It's a long walk down a logging road to go all the way out and around on the other side of the farm. And one of the things that stuck with me, in our text chain with you, Mark, and myself, where you were telling us about it that evening after you got back. And Mark said something like, yeah, but that's how you kill the big ones, or something to that effect. And I thought, I'm like, geez, what extra level of, thought process to go through that, and then extra level to go actually do it. Mm-hmm. And Mark said something about it like, hey, but that's how you kill the big ones. And then it was, I think the night before that, I had an encounter with one of the deer I was after, and we did not have any exit strategy, and we had to get out, and he was in the middle of the field. And then we haven't, barely seen him since. And I thought, yeah, there you go. There's the difference between these guys and the rest of us, but maybe take us through that plan and thought process.
Well, because of the pictures and all the data and information and really his travel patterns and travel route, we said, okay, if he goes south, back towards the bunkhouse, we can't go out that way because we're going to booger him. We'll drive right past him or walk right past him. So we're going to have to go north to get out of here. Well, we parked the buggy all the way out by the mud road real close. And I guess it was, I don't know, maybe a mile that we walked going out that night. And we waited till dark 30. We sat in a box maybe, 45 minutes or an hour and let him, because it was after legal when we finally saw him, we were looking through the loopholes and finally saw him. We were like, doggone it. It was no camera light. Let's just let him feed off and go south, and then we'll go north. But we did. We parked an extra buggy on the other end. We sure did. And walked about a mile. And then we said, okay, if we do this again, we're going to park a little closer next time. So we did. We parked it a little bit closer the next time, and we didn't have to walk quite as far. But that was the strategy. If he walked north, we were going to walk south to get out at night. If he walked south, we were walking north because we just didn't want to bump him. We didn't want to booger him. We didn't want to spook him. And we went to the nth degree to keep from boogering him. And Mark, the hardest thing, in my opinion, is to get out of a set and not clear a field because you don't know how much damage you do. That's one of the biggest indeterminants, in my opinion, in the whitetail world, is the damage that you do when you either crawl out of your tree stand or you leave a blind or whatever you're hunting in, because you don't know how many deer are close. You don't know how far they ran. You don't know if they got a good whiff of you. It's an indeterminate. So if you go to the extra measure to eliminate that indeterminate, then you've kind of won half the battle. It's bad enough getting in there, but it's even worse getting out.
It also brings up a principle that I know Mark has talked about before, in that the general sense is when you have an encounter with a deer, your odds of encountering him again kind of reset to zero, and you have to kind of figure him back out and play it again. But I think you guys kind of threw caution to the wind saying we're either going to bugger him or we're going to kill him, because you kept going in there. And I guess that's driven by the MRI.
Well, and to your point, I think it's like, we call it burning a chip. If you burn a chip with either a turkey or deer or elk, whatever it is, you burned a chip. So what you try not to do is burn that chip. And we were very extra precautionary by putting the buggies on the other end and walking out, even different access coming in. We knew where he was bedding. Hell, we'd been walking down the main road every evening. We quit doing that. We slipped down off the side hill and started sliding in there out of his field of vision, and making sure that when we got in there, he couldn't see us. So entrance and exit, we changed strategies just a little bit than what we normally do. But man, when you burn a chip with a big whitetail, you just, sometimes you don't see him again and you wonder why. That can be part of the problem.
So as you guys walk up on him, you're going through to recover him. First thoughts when you see him in person, and you're walking up and getting close to him.
There's always that little bit of humility, and I think it's a humbling experience because, we have such respect, number one, for the animal, and I think maybe that separates us from a lot of other people out there. I don't know if everyone has the same amount of respect, but we truly do, and it's a great experience to share it with someone. Sharing it with Forrest, because of the amount of time that he puts in, is really, really rewarding for me, because of the amount of time he put in, just on this particular deer. And the footage is stupid. I mean, it's just glorious. When he stands there broadside like a statue, he turns his head a little bit. So, to share that is a big deal. But there's a humbling experience, in my opinion, and it's somewhat sacred, to harvest a deer like that. There's a certain, I don't know, I think there's a lot of elements that go into that, from above. And whether you call them the deer gods or whatever, I think that's a big part of it. So I'm always grateful and thankful. That's my first thing, is thank the good man up above.
Yeah, there's you're 67, just turned 67 not long ago. It's technically your first deer over 200 inches. You've been doing this a long time. There's been some clips running around social media lately saying 190s and 200s aren't a big deal, but I would beg to differ. How do you feel about that?
It's just another day at the office, Matt.
Yeah.
Can I go to your office?
I was waiting to see just exactly how big Mark's biggest was, and then I thought I could top that.
No, don't go there.
I just came a little bit short.
Still gotcha.
A little bit, but it's I don't know. In our industry, you do hear a lot of people killing them. You're only as good as the spot you hunt. Yeah. You can't kill them if you don't have them. When you do have them, you got to kill them. And that's just it. We stayed on him. I've never, ever hunted a spot that hard, but I was really fearful that he was going to get broken up and busted up. So we just pounded it. I stayed after it, and we never boogered him. That was the key. We never once opened a window on him. And then when we exited, the exit strategy at night was pretty profound, heading to the north or waiting till after dark for an hour and a half until he's moved on. We'd slide out of there and just didn't want to mess him up. Mm-hmm. So I think that was instrumental. But to your point, I don't know. I get excited about certain deer. I got as excited over in Illinois about that 7-point. He scored 150 some inches, and I was as excited about him as any deer I've ever killed. So there's a different level with each and every one of them. Obviously, This one was a big plateau, no doubt.
I do wonder, because you and Mark essentially have devoted your lives to hunting mature whitetails. That seems to me, out of anyone, you probably have a better understanding and appreciation for what it takes for a deer to just live, just survive through the year. But beyond that, to grow and to become healthy and massive like that. I think that may be behind the respect and admiration you guys have for the whitetails, because out of anyone else out there, you probably have a better appreciation for really all the nutrition and cover and access to water and avoiding cars and EHD and all the other things that are stacked against a buck. And you guys see that on a year-round basis.
You couldn't have framed that up any better, Tim. You said a mouthful there, because just getting them to maturity is an act of God. It really is. And then to see one develop like he did, most people would have shot him at 4. I'll be honest. He was a nice 4.5-year-old deer. That one side with the drop and the other side wasn't bad. It just wasn't matching. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was nice. So, and I don't know, what would he have scored for us? Probably in the high 50s. Yeah, he'd have been in the high 50s at age 4.5. And we just wanted to give him one more year and see if he could reach potential. To your point earlier, Matt, on this farm and this year, for whatever reason, I think the drought, our racks went backwards on most of them. Very few of them developed like he did. He picked up, 50, 60 inches. So none of my other deer did that. They all went backwards. And it's also common for them to go backwards from 4.5 to 5.5, because at 4.5, they're like a stallion. They run, they go, they just don't stop. They're moving, they're traveling. And we had an extremely mild winter last year. So I think they moved all winter long. There was no, reserves. They didn't go into a hibernation. They didn't do none of that. Our deer just moved all winter long, and they ate everything we had. And, all the clover fields looked like a pool tabletop. So I think they burnt a lot of that fat that they normally can maintain and get them through the season. I think they burnt it off. So this year they had to put the fat back on before the antlers developed. And we saw the results of that. Same thing over in Illinois where we're hunting. It just they didn't do much, which we ran through the ringer last year and killed a lot of nice deer in Illinois. So we didn't expect much, but nothing took their place. So from 4 to 5 is one of those teetering years. I don't think they hit that real, that potential until 6 and 7. I think that's where they hit their biggest rack, 6.5, 7.5.
It's just weird. I wonder if him being messed up in that 4-year, when he was a 4-year-old, him being messed up, if it almost just had like some reserves in there that helped him blow the next year. You'd have to ask a biologist if that's even possible, but it's just weird that all the deer kind of went backwards, but that deer blew up that much. I mean, that's a ton.
Oddly enough, at age 4.5, we had very, very few daylight photos of him. It was all nocturnal. It was all at night, and he didn't go far. He was somewhat reclusive. And then at 5.5, when we started getting these summertime pics in early fall, hell, they were all daylight. I couldn't believe it because he was such a nighttime whitetail at 4.5. Mm-hmm. And then when he got to 5, he blew into this deer that walked all over during daylight. I just couldn't believe it because typically they go the other route,
And the pictures of this deer from summer and velvet, even the day, the days leading up to being shot, some of the prettiest stuff. Like it's just unbelievable. Like the velvet stuff in the sun's, kind of behind him or whatever in that velvety rack. It's like
showstopper.
Yeah, it's pretty stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, Forrest spent a lot of time adjusting cameras and putting cameras where they needed to go and all that stuff. So credit him for getting a lot of those photos that we had. But just the fact that he walked during daylight and he gave us that information, he just kept doing it. So when you got information like that as a hunter, and especially one if you're trying to kill a big deer, you got to act on it and you got to be smart about how you act. You can't be sloppy. You got to be somewhat calculating, and that's what we felt like we were doing.
So in this instance, a lot of times you and Mark will go back a year, did the history. In this instance, where he's changed his pattern so much, and this year it's so much daylight, like in the now, you're really going off of the MRI. You're getting that intel you're getting the day of, more so than, than going back in the history, like you guys tend to do.
Yes, because this one was rather odd. He wasn't like the normal deer that we hunt. Rarely do they do that. We're always going backwards 2 and 3 years, trying to figure out where they were the previous year, which you do the same. You guys both do it. Just trying to figure out where they were, what the odds are of him showing up at a spot on a certain date, certain time. And this one was just different. And to your point, Matt, I think he was injured or hurt. His body was smaller at 4.5. And then I think he put a bunch of body fat on and he didn't lose it through the winter months like all the rest of them. And he was fat. When we field dressed him, there was fat everywhere on the inside. Like he had 1.5 inches or 2 inches of fat. The moment we split him open, there was fat there. I was like, holy cow, that's uncommon.
Someone would talk about me and explode me open.
It's like, I can relate.
No first farm there.
Well, there's a biological term for deer. We talked about deer going backwards in their rack development. It's called going rackwards.
Oh, I like that, Tim.
Just made it up.
I don't.
No, I got Terry on board. I'm good.
It's all that matters.
Well,
man, it's always interesting to see, or hear these big buck stories. We've had a couple in a row each week. We had Ben Rising telling his big deer story and Dylan, and then we had Chris Probst come in and tell his big deer story. So
getting kind of sick of it.
Any similarities?
Ben was aggressive as usual, as he is. He's kind of, when I look at Ben's style of hunting, it reminds me of the way Mark used to be, like timber style, go get in there, go. I know he's kind of just like a coyote, he gets on him, he stays on him. So his not so much. Chris Probst, interestingly enough, his deer, they passed it. It was a superstar 3-year-old.
A lot of people passed that deer.
Yeah. And they passed it. And it was a 4-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. It was a 4-year-old at 191. And they just kind of all said, hey, there's no way we're passing it. This year was a 7x7 typical, I think.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so. So, it's just amazing. It's hard to, and they're in Missouri. They're not really probably that far, maybe an hour from you, but it's just hard. The gun season's coming. That it really doesn't matter how much acreage you got. Those deer are going to move in that period. It always strikes about the same time. The rut's hitting, and you're going to probably lose a deer to a neighbor with a gun. And that's every neighbor experiences it. Mm-hmm. So I think they decided, hey, we're going to shoot this deer, much like you. That's what I said. Like there was never a thought you're going to wait and see to 6.5. Like this deer is 5.5. It's as old as he's ever going to get, hopefully.
You know what, Matt, if I had, or if anyone has 5 or 10,000 acres and you knew he was a homeboy and he didn't roam and you thought you could give him a chance, he would have been one to give a chance, but there's no guarantees that he wouldn't go the other direction. Honestly,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think he would go, rackwards, Tim. I think he'd go, I know you said a lot of times they go backwards 4 to 5 or not hit as big of a increase. And then 5 to 6 they do, but I can't imagine that deer having that kind of growth, even 10 to 15 more inches, like maybe some of those extra points and stuff. But the mass, like you never know what the drop would do the next year. I don't know, man. To me, it's like, it's not even worth the risk. Mm-hmm. It's like he's target number 1.
Mark and Wade say it all the time. When you got him, boy, you better kill him. Yeah. Because there are no guarantees that he'll be there next year. Yeah. To your point, there's everything in the woods is trying to drag him down, or you never know with EHD and CWD and, automobiles and what have you. So there was no doubt in my mind we were going to kill him. I mean, we weren't going to let him, we weren't going to pass him because we're just not big enough here to do that, know.
So what's next, Terry? You take a breath from this one, and I know you're not done.
These guys were hunting the next night. Forrest was hunting.
Yeah, I'm behind the camera now, and Forrest is hunting, and we're trying to get him on one. And when he kills one here in Missouri, obviously, then we're gonna scoot over to Illinois and try and kill a couple over there if we have some luck.
So the night he shot was, my mom every year has a huge Halloween party, like our whole family, the Lurks, the Braces, like our cousins, everybody comes over with their kids, and it's trunk or treat. So everybody's dressing up and all that stuff. And, I'm obligated. I can't get out. It was the best day. It was the best night of the year weather-wise up to that point. And so I'm there at trunk or treat. It's a good dad.
Checking your DeerCast.
Yeah. And then I got the text, Mark and I, and I was, and the whole family's there. So it was neat to be with the family, and I get to see the kill because they sent the video shot of it, a short clip of it, and everybody was all pumped up. So it's fun to experience that. But yeah, I knew these guys, like he never goes to that party. He never goes
doing
to
something.
No, yeah. Never makes it.
I will add this. One of the one of the maybe the most fun things I've ever done since I've been in my hunting career. We came back, we recovered him right away. He fell down 15 yards from the edge of the bean field. So we drug him the whole sum of about 15 yards up to the edge of the field.
Nice.
Walked back, got the buggy. We were on cloud nine. I mean, we didn't hit the ground, got back there, loaded him up, brought him back to the barn. Well, the first thing I did, we cracked a beer,
Yeah.
Then we
Bush
cracked
latte.
another one. Yeah. Then another one. So I guess one of the greatest things that's ever happened, we decided to measure him then and score him. And man, these measurements, I was like, holy smokes. I literally couldn't believe it as he was reading them, Forrest did. And he's really, really meticulous about this stuff. He's not sloppy. He's very meticulous. It's all accurate. And we just kept adding them up. And I was like, I just couldn't believe it. And then we get to the end and I'm adding and I went, this can't be right. It just can't be. But it was. We've added and re-added and remeasured and re-added and checked, and it's on the gnat's ass. I mean, it's close. So we didn't go too big anywhere. We were very, very meticulous about getting it done. And it was I don't know. It was just fun to get to that number for the first time.
So he grossed 216.
Yeah.
So the side with the drop tine went what, and the other side went what? It was 100 something and 97 something.
80. He was, and we never do this ever. You've never seen us put a score ever. In all the years we've been doing this, Forrest decided to. I guess you printed this off. He printed it offline, and then just went ahead and filled it in. So he was 82 and 7/8 on one side. He was 86 and 1/8 on the other side. Yeah, and then he had almost 30 inches of junk.
My
Stuff, non-tip. And then he was 17-inch spread, 17 and 6/8 inch spread.
What?
So,
well, those 80s were with the that's with the mass measurement.
That was with the mass measurements.
Okay.
Yes, not with the non-typical stuff.
Oh, that's what. Because I was going to say, I thought it was 97. It was 100 inches on one side and 97 other, but that's with the
Correct.
non-typical stuff.
Yeah, correct. So it was so fun. I couldn't believe it, and we were just still on cloud nine. And this was, then we, took pictures. We were 3 a.m. till we finally got done.
I was going to say, you guys were taking photos at like 1:30, weren't you?
Yeah.
The photos, that one photo of the stars, the constellations in the background is one of the neatest photos I've ever seen. And the deer is just giant. I mean, that Forrest really did a good job.
I'd love to take credit, but I can't. He's just a superstar. He really is. Forrest does such a good job doing that stuff. And I can't thank, and he even had Sprinkles out there helping.
His wife. Yeah.
Ever so slightly. Yeah. So we've got some funny stuff that she filmed here while we were taping this. We can't air it anywhere, but
yeah. So was the turtle box, that bottomland turtle box bumping and you guys partying in the war room there?
Oh yeah. Well, here it is. It's sitting over there somewhere.
Yeah, there it is.
Can you see the turtle box?
Yeah. I figured you guys were partying that night. That's the only part I miss. We don't get to do it together often anymore where, take part in celebrating together and all that stuff. I'll
tell you what, you bring Cam up this weekend. If he kills one, we're going to do it this weekend. It's youth season and I am fired up as I've ever been. We're going to have some fun getting him on a deer and hopefully we can get one on the ground with him. I just hope they move.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to him cracking his first beer.
He's going to get belligerent.
No, it'd be sugar. And another thing. No, yeah, we're excited. So we were shooting the 350 Legend, the XPR from Winchester, and we had a can on it. We had a Silencer Central Banish, I think 30, I think is what was on it. And so we practiced there in Bloomsdale this past Saturday. He's ready. And so I was telling Tim, though, the one thing that worries me a little bit, like we're going to have one stand still because we had it on that bog pod, that death grip, and he does have trouble seeing through that scope a little bit, like the black, if you don't have it just right. So we're going to have to hopefully get one to stand still. But if we can get one to stand still, I think he'll put a good shot on him. He was pretty comfortable with it by the time we were done.
oddly enough, these bucks seem to be ready, but they're not just going bananas yet. The does are feeding heavily. So it's been, this year is a little odd. I mean, this moon waxing where it does here, I think it's going to be a light switch event.
Yeah.
Like I think it's just going to absolutely go ballistic here. Once that cold front hits and the moon wax is full, I think you're going to see a lot of deer die over the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
Mark said it might be a little cold. If we have troubles, that could be what it is, because it's been so warm. And hell, this week, it's like today is like 80.
Yeah.
But after that rain event this weekend, all next week, which coincides with that moon setting in the morning, I mean, you would think all next week, if you're not able to take vacation day and get in a tree in the morning, like that could be the best period of the entire year next week in the morning.
Perhaps. I think evenings are going to be good too, though. I really do, because it typically coincides, even though the moon is not rising, it's rising later. I think that feeding pattern, because that last 10 days or last week in October, typically you want to be on that feed pattern, that afternoon or evening movement. And then it switches like a light switch to morning movement the first 10 days of November. So to your point, I think the first 10 days of November are going to be off the charts this year.
Yeah.
I really do. We just missed this moon phase that I wait for. I wait literally all year for this period that we're in right now, where the moon is coming up at 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it's been 80 degrees. It's just killing us because they're just not moving until later in the evening. It's right at dark.
Terry, I don't know about you. I'm curious to hear from both you and Matt. I am struggling to find scrapes in the woods where I normally find them. They're just, there's not as many, it seems like, just yet.
It almost seems like it's a little suppressed to me, which we had a pretty good rut last year. And, the Wenzels wrote about this a long time ago, about how intense a rut is somewhat indicative of what kind of winter you're going to have, deep snows and all that other stuff. So you never know if there's something to that, or if it's kind of a wives' tale. But I've not seen just all out, balls out, running and grunting and none of that yet. And we should be getting to that soon. We are a little early yet, but even the sparring, I don't know, they just haven't seemed as aggressive as I've seen them in years past. Not yet. But the warm weather has probably got a lot of that suppressed in all reality. It happens at night. Everything we're seeing now is at night. We're seeing a few scrapes, but not many.
That's what I was going to mention last night on my cameras. The deer seemed, especially on my new farm, seemed to be going nuts. I got one really good buck, and he was all chasing, running. I mean, he was all over the place last night. And so, and now in Marthasville, the lease we have out there, we have it. We always see a lot of scrapes. We have every year. That's not the issue for us out there. And maybe it's a buck to doe ratio situation. I don't know, but we always have a lot of scrapes on that farm, but it's one giant field. So most of the scrapes, it's still mostly happening at night, and they're going, checking all those scrapes. I mean, so I think it's about normal there, but we haven't been up to my raw stuff yet. So we kind of been saving it, watching the cameras, waiting for the weather. Next week, I'm going all in. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up with one somewhere.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Well, and the warm weather we're seeing here in the Midwest, I'm not following some of the, upper Midwest and the Northeast. I think they got some cooler temperatures up there. So, deep South, I think it's warm. I don't know about out West, but it's really, really been exceedingly warm for us. This is very odd to have 80-degree temperatures at the end of October is just not right. Yeah. So I can see why they're somewhat suppressed and all of it. They're not running, they're walking. But I could see this literally changing like that. When that cold weather hits, it'll really crank them up and turn things on. It'll turn it around very, very fast.
Before we jump into the show standards and get through some of these things, I do want to say we're going to try a new special series here coming up. It's called Just the Tip, because it's just going to be a tip from Terry, kind of rut related. And so I had asked the Rack Pack, their questions, related questions. We're going to pick, 5, 6, something like that. And we're going to do 15, 20-minute podcasts and answering that question, with Terry's thoughts related to the rut. And we're going to try to have a 2, 3, 4, roll those out relatively quickly between each other. So less time between podcasts, shorter episodes. So that I think will be the next set of episodes after this episode.
Yep.
We're going to film this new kind of shortened series called Just the Tip.
Should be good.
Tim came up with the name.
Tim. Me?
You should see the graphic Joe made for it. It's pretty funny.
Can't wait.
I like it. I got a kick out of it.
You're giggling. I bet you did.
It was my idea, but I mean, maybe that's why I think it's funny.
I got guilt by association here, I think.
All right. So real quick, let's jump through the show standards and get back to work.
Okay. So we got a real wild clip. Some folks may have seen a rough cut of this on the Rack Pack, in the Rack Pack
over on Facebook.
Over on Facebook. Yep. This is coming from our buddy Brady Stockman. This is his first bow buck kill. So let's take a look at this footage here.
All right. So this is
that's a tank of a deer.
It's a heck of a deer. He's self-filming.
Yeah. It looks like he's in some brassicas maybe.
Yeah.
And he's close. Like Brady is
perfect shot, off leg, perfect shot.
Smoked him. So it's slow motion. The deer is running, and then you see like he is just hemorrhaging like no one's business.
That's what you dream about. That's what we all dream about coming into this period we're about to come into.
Yes,
is a big deer showing up right in front of you, giving you the opportunity, making the perfect shot,
seeing the blood trail happening before your eyes. Yeah. Golly, what an incredible buck to start out your archery career with.
That was his first buck.
That's what he said.
Oh man, congratulations, Brady. Self-filming or somebody filming that? Because that
I think it was on his own. Not positive.
That's not easy to do.
No,
like it was perfect.
None of what happened was easy.
So that was a real wild clip. Was brought to you by Cold Steel. Whether you're out skinning a deer, which Brady did, filleting a walleye, or everyday carrying, Cold Steel is just the right blade for you. Congratulations, Brady.
Nice job, buddy.
Terry, that's what you dream of, right? Right there.
Yeah, he's ruined. I mean, that thing was a pit.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to
see
stop
the neck on that thing.
Oh, he had no neck. It was just body and then head.
Yeah.
To your point, that's the distance you want them right there. That's where it's a chip shot and you settle in and you squeeze. It's those are the ones you just pray for and you dream about.
Still ways to screw it up, though.
I'll find a way. Yep.
Moving on.
Always do.
All right. So we got the question of the day. Question of the day is proudly brought to you by Leupold Optics. Be relentless with unparalleled ruggedness of Leupold rangefinder, scopes, and binos. I want to add real quick here. They got that new BX4. It's the binocular that's got the rangefinder in it.
That's like Star Wars technology.
It's pretty cool. I've been using it this fall. It's pretty neat. I just find myself when you're sitting there and nothing's going on, you're just kind of ranging and you're glassing and ranging. Oh, that's 200 yards away. Good to know. It's 212.
If all this useless knowledge in my head about ranges.
That I will only probably screw me up when the deer comes out.
Now,
wait. What was in front of me?
It's funny because I'll be sitting in the stand and I'll just go through and range things. And like a second later, I can't remember what those things were again.
Yeah. It's like, all right, this was 34. This was 19. This was 23. He goes to the gap at 75. You'll never remember any of that.
Nope. Just something to do to kill the time.
Terry, you got any tips? Just tip for how to remember your distances you range before the deer comes out?
I do. I keep my rangefinder in my pocket.
Same.
There you go.
That's not a very good tip. I promise in this series coming up, the tips are going to be better than that.
You know what I typically do though? I range a circle. If he's inside the circle, he's, 20, 25 or whatever it may be, or 45. If when they walk into your roundhouse, if you just range a couple tufts of grass or a couple leaves or a couple limbs or a couple trees, and when they get inside that circle, they're dead. That's what I call dead zone, if you will.
I feel like back in the day growing up, did you used to go out and spray paint the yardages on trees?
No.
Did you spray paint the trees or flag the trees? For some reason, like before rangefinders were really a thing, I felt like growing up, I remember you doing that for the hunts we would go on.
Might have put a ribbon or a flag on them or something.
Maybe so.
Maybe those little orange things.
20 yards, 30 yards, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like the deer's walking out onto a 3D archery course or something.
Blue, he's at yellow, or he's at 20. All right, what's next? Oh, right. Oh, the question.
Yeah. So Zach Feigert, my buddy, he wants to know what light we prefer when we're blood trailing.
Terry, what light do you prefer when blood trailing? I mean, we're just kind of using all energizers, aren't we?
Yeah, and I've used so many. There are some really, really good ones. And ironically enough, Forrest has got some of the camera lights that we use that are so bright. It's that hot white light.
Mm-hmm. The LED.
Really, it does a nice job.
Yeah, those LED, I feel like the LEDs help tremendously.
Yeah, that Chris, like we made the switch from halogen lights, which were kind of yellowish, a little dingy, a little warm, but the high contrast on those high temperature LEDs really, really helps.
Yeah. Now, what I've noticed, a lot of these newer lights, they're rechargeable. It's a rechargeable. You plug it in and recharge it. The problem with this, and I had to ask a guy at Energizer that we know, you won't get an indication that it's running out. Like on one of those, that
some of them will blink at you.
Yeah, these battery powered, or not battery, like rechargeable ones. Yeah. They go at full strength until they're out, and then they're out. So whereas, you think about the old where you put a battery in and it'll slowly kind of dim out at some of those. So you do got to watch out for that. I usually have like 5 lights in my pack. For what reason? I don't know. Cause I never kill anything.
One of these days.
But boy, when other people kill stuff and they need a light, I'm your guy.
Go. I'm the light guy. All right. The wildlife word this week is made possible by ScentLock. Be elite with ScentLock's Bowhunter Elite 1 collection of premium hunting apparel.
The BE1 series. All right.
And that's what you're wrapped in. That's what Terry's wrapped in.
That's right.
Okay. What additional feature is important for whitetails as they choose a scrape location? Is it A, proximity to water, B, adequate sunlight, C, an overhead branch, or D, loose soil?
Terry, what do you think?
Usually the overhead branch. That's because we'll go to the nth degree and we'll cut off many of those branches and just keep the ones that we want them to scrape.
There you go.
Around the field edge.
That sounds manipulative.
It is manipulative.
Yes. Very definition. And the Drury boys are correct. An overhead branch is right.
All right. We got.
What did I win?
A DOD hoodie.
Just the tip segment on Wednesday with us.
Hosting duties.
more episodes of the podcast.
Hey. All right. So Chuck Dossier. I don't know.
Dossier.
He left us a shout out on Facebook. He said, "My favorite part of the show is how funny Matt and Tim are."
Yeah, buddy.
Hey, Chuck. Thank you.
Chuck. It's the man.
Funny when we probably don't even intend to be.
Funny looking. Funny how. Ooh. Funny like a clown. Great movie.
Movie references. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Last, we have the Rack Pack members from the Facebook group, which we have quite a few now. I feel like there's like 2,400 Rack Pack members.
That's about right.
All right. So we got Roy Brown, Zach Joint, Hunter Caps, Raymond Huck, Adam Cooper, Jordan Ennis, Chris Otson, Rodney Rader, Bradley Lucas, Hugh Jimenez, Huge miss. Dang it. God dang it. Huge miss. I got it. There was the fake one.
Huge Jimenez.
Could have been.
You're adding letters.
Two mess.
What was one of those Hunter Caps?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
You know him?
No, I thought maybe that was
the fake one. No,
Hunter's Caps.
That's a good one, Terry.
Could have been.
Nope, it's Huge miss.
Huge miss.
It's worse than a huge hit.
Right.
All right.
Makes you sad.
Well, Terry, congratulations on a deer of a lifetime. Congratulations to Forrest as well, because
I'll tell you what, I'm going to have Forrest pop in real quick, just say hello.
I was wanting to see that hair of his.
Oh, it's pretty good. I'm telling you.
And there's
Hey, Forrest.
Hey,
Look at this guy.
the Bottomland boys.
Hey, congratulations, buddy. And congratulations on taking maybe some of the best hero photos of your life.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, they were pretty awesome.
The star one. I mean, how are you going to top that?
I'm not, because I don't know, the chances of getting to photograph a 216 with the sky like that ever again are probably slim and slimmer.
Yeah. Well, Cameron and I are going to shoot for a 116 this coming weekend. Be ready.
Oh, it's clear. We'll try to shoot some more like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to cooperate really well for us. How long did you have to sit in the same pose for that exposure to get the photo?
30-second exposure.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad.
But it's many times.
Yeah, I think we did 4 or 5 takes.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Terry, were you cranky through that part of the night?
No, I was already hammered.
Cloud 9.
Already feeling good.
So, Forrest, what's next for you, buddy? I mean, obviously you're up to bat here. You're behind the bow. You got something you're interested there. I know you guys are kind of a management mission, but there's a couple good deer still on the farm. Something that excites you?
There's a deer we call the Fat 8. He's like 9 or 10 years old. He doesn't have much on his head, but man, he's a tough one. We've actually never seen him, so gonna maybe try to get on him. And then there's a couple other mature deer that whatever one gives me a shot first, probably gonna sling an arrow at.
Yeah,
good deal. Good deal. Well, congratulations, guys. Hell of a feat. Took a team effort there, and you guys should be really proud of yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right. Well, I think that's it for now.
Yeah,
Tim.
make sure you guys stay tuned for the Rut series coming up here. It's going to be good.
Say the series name.
It's hosted by Terry Drury.
Say the name of the series.
JTT.
Oh, no.
Oh, God help us.
I was wrong. JTT.
JTT.
J triple T. Just the tip.
Dang.
All right, we better stop. Till next time.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out.
See ya.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.